Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Export to Japan podcast. And this edition is the next one in a series that we have been doing featuring the Osaka 2025 Expo. And those of you listening in regularly will remember back in October time, that was the last time we had a discussion here on the podcast series about the Expo. And it was something like 6 months out when we were talking about where we were and where the UK was at that time. We are now, at the time of recording today, we are literally weeks away from the Expo. That time has gone so quickly. So it's a wonderful time to have a great catch up and find out what's been going on over that period, where we are today, and what more exciting things we can learn about the Expo. And I'd like to welcome back one of our guests that joined us back in October. Great to have you back, Rupert. This is Rupert Daniels, who is the Director of the Creative, Consumer, Sport and Education sectors, as well as being Director of the Business Program for Osaka Expo. So he's the man we need to be talking about or talking to, and it's great to have you back. So Rupert, welcome back to the podcast.
Pleasure to be back, Steve. Good to see you again. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And I suspect the last 6 months has gone incredibly quickly for you, as it has for everybody else. And I'm looking forward to hearing the updates on what's going on.
As you were talking, 6 months has absolutely flown by, and to go from months to weeks away is quite a prospect, hey?
It really is. It really is. And of course, the Expo will start very shortly, and I think the whole program is about 6 months of the Expo, isn't it? So that will go very quickly too. So it's certainly very, very exciting times and a good opportunity to sort of catch up with you. And I'd like to just sort of kick off by sort of building on that point. We had you 6 months ago updating us, and at that time I remember you were telling us some really exciting stuff about a number of UK companies that were sort of involved in winning projects and contracts to do with the construction and the organization of Expo. I'd like to hope with just a few weeks to go, most of that work may be done, but that's what I'd like to hear about. I mean, what is the latest situation, Rupert, on where we are with the Expo today and the UK pavilion, and what's the situation on the ground today with the Expo?
Well, situation is it's all systems go, and I think there's sort of final checks, but it's looking good for our pavilion. The Expo opens in Osaka on the 13th of April, which is in less than a month. So we've got 158 countries coming together underneath this theme of designing future society for our lives. And what you're seeing is the Expo site is pretty much live now, and all the pavilions are putting the final touches, to their operations, going through dry runs, testing, sort of soft launching, really. So it's all systems go. We're very excited. This site will receive about 28 million visitors, so we better be ready, hey? And I've talked to the team recently, and it really is all systems go. So we're extremely excited. The teams are working day and night, and my involvement mostly is organising the business component. So how are we going to advance the UK's growth programs and objectives, and use this wonderful platform of the pavilion to strengthen that sort of connection with Japan and with the rest of the world. And building out this comprehensive business program is the way we're going to do that. So that's where we are at the moment, and I'm pretty sure all the other countries are in a similar state of sort of like getting ready, getting excited, fixing last minute snags, so that everyone's ready for opening on the 13th of April.
Fantastic. And yes, I know from firsthand with dealing with a lot of your colleagues and the teams that you work with, I know the incredible amount of hard work and the long hours that so many people have put into to pulling this over the line and making this happen. And it's very, very exciting to be in this position with, as you say, at the time of recording here, we are literally just a month away from the opening event. Now, you mentioned the business program there, and I certainly want to come on to that and ask you a little bit more sort of about that business program. But I would just like to really take the opportunity, before we get into that detail, I don't want to make, it'd be wrong of us to make an assumption that everybody listening in here really understands what an expo is all about.
Mm.
So you sort of touched on it a little bit there, and some incredibly impressive numbers you mentioned: up 158 countries and potentially 28 million visitors. Can you just sort of expand on that a little bit for anyone who may not really know what an expo is about? At a very high level, what is this event about, and what are the objectives of this event?
Well, expos have got a very interesting history. If you cast your mind back to sort of history classes and the great exhibition under Queen Victoria at Crystal Palace, this was actually the birth of what we see in the modern day as expos. So they happen every 5 years. The last one was in Dubai, which was actually delayed by COVID by a year. So it was actually only sort of 3 or 4 years ago. And the next one after this will be in Saudi Arabia in 2030. So effectively what you've got is sort of a traveling exhibition which is designed to sort of showcase the future. And that's why it's so exciting. It's what you're going to see at this expo are everything from sort of what we hear about every day now with AI, to things like, well, how is that applied into things like humanoid robots or flying cars or human heart patches, which are going to revolutionize healthcare. So really what expos are there to do is to have a bit of a glimpse of the future, and put the future under the microscope and say, here's what might happen, but actually make it entertaining, make it exciting, make it interesting, make it a vital thing for people to do, which is why we're expecting 28, 30 million visitors, of which we think from the UK pavilion, we're going to get a good few million of those will come through the UK pavilion. So it's our job to create a really exciting kind of must attend experience for those visitors that are going to be coming. So you'll see things like national days. So we will take over in May, we'll have our national day. And every country has a national day. We'll take over the whole site. So you'll see things from all across the UK. I can't tell you exactly what that's going to be because it's a tightly held sort of secret, because we want to create sort of a big wow factor. But what you'll see is we'll take over the whole site in May, and what we'll have is a wonderful, wonderful legacy for the future. And that's really what you can expect from the expos. Bit of the history, but actually what it is all about is looking to the future. And that's why the theme is, designing future society for our lives. And our theme as the UK is come build the future. And that's really, I think, it's a call out. It's saying, come and build the future together, because we are all stronger together. And here's some wonderful ideas and innovation which is coming out of the UK, out of our amazing companies with great innovation, great R&D, and great concepts and ideas for people to sort of take on board, think about, and then go away with a really warm feeling about not just the UK, but about the future for all of us.
Yeah, fantastic. How incredibly exciting. W- One of the interesting points that just occurred to me as listening to you there is in terms of the audience. I guess you've got the visitors that you mentioned. You've got the 28 million visitors coming in, which is just a colossal number. I guess that's sort of almost half the population of the UK, right? To put that in relative terms, it's an awful lot of people visiting the expo. But I suppose the other bit we should remember is when you've got the 158 countries there and different countries with different pavilions and things like that, there's a big audience there too, right? Of the other countries that are
Mhm.
exhibiting and showing their innovation and their ideas. So I guess from the UK perspective, there could be opportunities for sort of collaboration and knowledge exchange and sharing country to country outside of the Japan connection too, possibly.
Oh, absolutely. And that was my experience at the last expo. I spent a good sort of 3 or 4 weeks there working with education, working in the creative industries, in sport. And what we always did is we made sure that our delegations also visited the other pavilions, and we invited delegations from other pavilions to visit ours. So that's why the expo is really, it's cleverly put together because it's thematic. So there'll be a themed week which will all be about the future of health, the future of transport. So what you'll get is you'll get sort of the transport ministers coming in from all over the world, along with a delegation of businesses, and we'll all kind of mixed together in a big melting pot at the expo. So that feeling, it's not just about the audience of in many cases sort of Japanese families, but also people from the wider area across sort of Southeast Asia. But what you're going to get is a global kind of concentration of footfall of people who are very immersed in a particular sector. So whether that's life sciences, healthcare, technology, creative industries, sports, fashion, the world comes together, and we've got a great story to tell as part of that global expo. And that's one of the big values which we're talking to UK companies to say, if you come to this, be prepared, bring 2 bags of business cards, because you're going to meet a ton of people from across the world who you may end up partnering with and working together to take your business into dimensions which you hadn't even imagined.
Got it. Yeah. And so those themes that you're talking about, I think you mentioned potentially eight different themed weeks going on. That would be the right time for any of our UK companies that are potentially thinking to go out as part of the expo. It's worth them looking into when are those particular themed weeks that could be relevant to their sector, and looking to perhaps do something around a visit or something around that particular themed week. Would that be how you would advise people to start to look at it?
Oh, absolutely. And because, as we said, it's weeks away, we've already begun that process of sourcing companies who from the UK who may be interested to visit as part of the delegation which we'll be taking out. So if you go on things like LinkedIn, we've also sent it out through trade bodies. So whether it's going for, we're doing something in the food and drink sector, for example. Japan has amazing affinity with UK food and drink. In fact, the Secretary of State, talking about LinkedIn, I was watching the Secretary of State yesterday. So Jonathan Reynolds has been in Japan last week. And there's a whole thing of Jonathan at one of the Japan superstores having cream tea. So one of our biggest export successes to Japan, here's a nice export fact, is clotted cream and jam, because the Japanese absolutely love a cream tea, as do we. So Rhodos is one of our great sort of Cornish manufacturers of cream teas and the clotted cream. So the Secretary of State was having, and there's the debate, of course, as to whether it's the cream first or the jam first. But what we're looking to do is like say, okay, let's expand this. So we're going to create something called the Festival of Flavors, and we're taking that down to Osaka, and there'll be opportunities to taste not just cream teas, but English delicacies, English sparkling wine. And I say English, sorry, I should correct myself there. It's across from the whole of the UK. So, we want to make sure that people immerse themselves in all the wonderful products that you get in the food and drink sector, just as an example. So we're currently now working with all the different food and drink sector teams across the UK to find those companies who are going to be part of the Festival of Flavors. And we're going to take over the Expo Pavilion and run some business events. But the idea really is it's a bit like matchmaking. It's brilliant to let the public sort of get involved and taste these things and create a buzz. But actually, what we want to do is generate more business opportunities and more growth opportunities for UK companies. So we'll be having a proper mission where we'll do matchmaking, and what we'll do with nearly all of these missions as well, so whether it's food and drink or technology or transport or luxury goods and fashion, we'll also be sort of stopping off across Japan and the wider region as well. So there'll be an Osaka leg, which will be the focal point. But then also, whilst we're in market, we'll be taking the teams to visit, their counterparts and matching buyers and sellers in Tokyo and right across Japan and the wider region of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess you're kind of beginning to answer one of my next questions, which was going to be to ask you the detail of the business program. And clearly, these wonderful initiatives that you're touching on here are all very, very much part of that. And I'll, let's talk some more about that in a second. But I just want to come back to one very good point you made. You spoke about that sort of affinity between the UK and Japan, and I know something you're very passionate about personally. And I remember from your previous experience, I think going back to the FIFA World Cup, you had a lot. You lived in Japan for a while, and you were very involved in that. And you shared that very amusing story about your Mohican haircut at the time, which I remember very, very
Yeah.
well. But I know that's something that you appreciate and you're passionate about. And maybe you could just elaborate a little bit more on that from your experience, that sort of affinity and that close connection between the UK and Japan.
Yes, it's extraordinary. Every time I visit, I find out something new. And the last time I was in Japan, we ran a luxury goods and fashion mission. So, we got wonderful luxury brands, people like Smyson, Swain. So, for example, even Aston Martin. Aston Martin are one of the partners of the Expo Pavilion as well. But it's on sort of like fine detail of UK music, for example. We're teaming up with the Summer Sonic Festival, which is also in Osaka later on during the expo. So we'll be bringing UK bands over who will play at the festival, and then they'll also be playing in and around the expo site as well. So what we're trying to do is 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 build upon those wonderful links and strengthen them, because we're very keen to make sure that the expo is something which you know builds on the momentum we already have. And bear in mind, I'm sure you've covered it on the podcast before, we do have a free trade agreement with Japan, and what we really want to do is make sure that we utilize this. And so, for example, if it's Great British footwear, and you look at some of the wonderful things that come out of Northampton, so Crockett and Jones and Cheney and Churches, you know, in Japan, these are brands which are revered. Same with people like Paul Smith. So, when you think about bands like Paul Smith or Vivienne Westwood, these are really sought after brands in Japan, and people make pilgrimages over to the UK, just to sort of feel part of that. So actually, what we're trying to do is bring a bit of the UK across to Japan, but not just for the expo. To build and strengthen those bridges, so that actually it's a long-lasting legacy, which is felt in the business community, as well as on perhaps what you might call the sort of the softer elements, and that builds on things like the Soft Power Council, which the Foreign Secretary has recently launched, but also builds upon our long-standing affinity. And as you mentioned, I have a personal sort of fondness for Japan. I, I love every time I go there. I find something new. I learn something new, and I think it'll be the same when I come back out for some of these thematic weeks at the expo.
Fantastic. And that's just such a beautiful summary. And I certainly share your affinity. From my 20 years experience of doing business in Japan, I understand exactly what you're talking about. And that passion for working with Japanese people and working in Japan is something that's so strong. And the great connection we have between the UK and Japan is definitely something we should be building on. And
Well,
and I
one
guess
thing,
one of the points.
just to add to that, in terms of how might you get involved. Um, the trade mission recruitment is, it's live now, and obviously because the expo is over a period of 6 months, there's still plenty of time to get involved. So I would really sort of say to anyone who's watching this, if you want to get involved, go on the great.gov.uk website, search for expo. If you've got specific questions, you can get in touch with our team, and perhaps if you can share this as well. But it's Osaka Business Program at businessandtrade.gov.uk. That email address will go straight to the team, and if you're interested in participating and getting out to Japan as part of the expo, that's where you'll find out about that.
Yeah, fantastic. And we will absolutely share all of those links on the Export to Japan website and all the other routes that we push this podcast out. We'll gladly share all of those links so that people can find the right routes in. Um, I guess one question I'd like to ask, and I'm sort of thinking of this on behalf of our audience. A number of quite a high proportion of the companies that utilize export to Japan are sort of in the SME category, and
Mhm.
it might be for various reasons that getting out as part of a trade mission or something, it might be an option they can evaluate, but for various reasons, it may not be something that they can do, or it may not be the right time for them. But are there any sort of thoughts you have for companies that can't necessarily get out to Japan as part of the Osaka Expo? Any thoughts or advice on what they can still do to benefit or learn from it, or what next steps for them you would recommend?
Absolutely. I think obviously this program is all about the expo, but we operate worldwide, and we have a very special sort of program which helps to build capability, particularly for SMEs, which is the UK Export Academy. So we run webinar series which focus on sort of lessons learned, case studies, building capability. So whether it's going to Japan in the future or considering exporting anywhere else in the world, there's a huge range of resources available as part of the Export Academy. But also across the UK, you've got international trade advisors, you've got support from people like the Chambers of Commerce, you've got support from trade bodies who you might want to affiliate with as well. So what we do as the DBT, we help businesses get into markets, because actually that's one of the things we often hear from businesses, particularly small businesses. There is a bit of kind of a nervousness about taking such a big step. So actually what we often do is we'll work with businesses to build their capability, build their knowledge, build their skills, help with business programs, help with their overall planning, so that we can say, okay, this market looks like it could be really interesting for you. And then at some point in the future, as I said previously, we want to use this expo as a bit of a foundation, as a building block for the future. So it may be that it's not the right time to come out for companies which are not quite ready. But what this does is this prepares the ground for future exports and future missions to Japan and beyond Japan. So please do contact us. Get in touch with your international trade advisor. Contact us through great.gov.uk, and you know this is just the start, and that's the message we really want to bring across.
Fantastic. That's a very, very powerful message. And I would certainly back up the point you're making with some real life examples, because when we last had you on back in October last year, your podcast and your discussion at that time generated a lot of inquiries coming in from companies that were just sort of saying, I'd never really seriously thought about Japan before, but hearing about the expo and what's going on, and it's got Japan on my radar, and where can I learn more? Or how can I do more? And we obviously channel people down the various routes that you just recommended. And then just secondly, this week, over the last 2 weeks, I've been involved in the Indo-Pacific Roadshow that's been going on
Oh,
around the UK. And I was there with my Japan hat on, and the same thing there, same messaging came through. It was amazing how many companies had heard about the expo and all the good work that's being done there, and that in itself was triggering them to think about Japan for the first time. So it's incredible the benefit of the investment that goes into these, which is considerable, but the benefit is huge in terms of practically getting people thinking about these markets and getting involved in these markets. So it's all very, very exciting. Good. Okay, Rupert. Well, I know you're a very busy man, and we're very grateful to catch a bit of your time. I think you're about to head off to China or somewhere tomorrow, I think, on another
wow.
amazing business trip. Do you have any plans or any date in your diary to get back over to Japan at this stage, or is that still a bit to be confirmed for you at the moment?
It's still to be confirmed, but
Hmm.
there's 6 months worth of programs that, and I must also thank my team as well, because they're running you know the actual business program itself. I'm working with them and overseeing it, but day in day out they're liaising across goodness knows how many different organizations. The team out in Osaka and out at the embassy in Tokyo, thanks to those teams as well. But yes, I mean, what we're trying to do is trying to make sure that actually we open up new channels for growth. And this is all connected back to the new industrial strategy, which is going to be launched later on this year. So we need to make sure that we're pushing UK technology, we're pushing UK life sciences, creative industries, advanced manufacturing, and the other eight the industrial strategy categories for growth. And Japan is a key market for that, which is why the Secretary of State's just recently visited. And similarly, China is a great opportunity for us, particularly in the creative industries, in fashion, in sport, in film. So we're going to be visiting places like the Hong Kong Film Mart to talk about co-production agreements between UK and Chinese companies. So we'll have similar discussions in China as to the ones which we'll have in Japan. And it's all about partnership. It's all about building global bridges so that we can actually help the UK economy to grow through exports and also through inward investment as well. How can we work with
Mm.
companies who may want to sort of start up in the UK, and how can we find the right partners in order to do that? And that's really the mission of the Business and Trade Department. It's to be the growth driver and to facilitate that growth for the wider UK economy.
Fantastic. And it's so great to hear about all that good work going on. In the course of the nature of the work that I do, I often come across companies from other countries outside of the UK, and they always talk to me with great envy about all the good work that our government does, because they often say to me, our governments don't do all these great initiatives to drive trade and investment. And it's just amazing, as you've just elaborated on there, all the good work that goes on behind the scenes to make sure, in this example, make sure things like the Expo run so smoothly, and we have such a big presence there and so many great programs going on. And so it's very much appreciated, all that great work that goes on behind the scenes in order to facilitate and pave the way for UK companies to get involved in these things and prosper and grow on an international stage. So
I mean, I would add
great work.
to that. That's why the Expo is such a great platform, because what we're really great at is putting on a wonderful show. So wherever you go in the world, and particularly in Japan, you know, whether it's music, whether it's film, whether it's immersive entertainment, uh, we're world leaders at these kind of things. Look at the roster of people who are winning Oscars and BAFTAs, and how UK film and television is such a success all over the world. So the Expo Pavilion will be a reflection of that. There's a 20-minute immersive journey through, which takes you through, sort of the world of the UK through the eyes of a Japanese father and daughter and a little mascot called Pix. So what we're trying to do is showcase the very best of the UK. So whether that's food and drink or life sciences or the creative sector, that's what we do well. And let's not forget, there's 158 countries exhibiting. There are other pavilions. It's competitive. We've got to find a compelling reason for people to come and visit the UK pavilion and walk away with that warm glow, thinking, yeah, you know what, the UK's got something special going on. And that's where the business program comes together with the wider kind of consumer program. So we've just got a job to do to work with the Expo organizers, but also entertain the public so that they walk away thinking that the UK is a place where they'd really like to do business.
Fantastic. And I have a feeling that you are going to do that very successfully. And I know a lot of talented people are putting a lot of work into that. So
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing more. I mean, maybe what we will do, Rupert, is try and catch some of your time in another 3 or 4 months' time from now, and take a snapshot on where things are with the Expo. And you can share some more detail of some of those stories with us. That would be great if we can catch your
Love
time
to.
and have that catch up. Thank you. Yeah, we'll do that as the next in the series of these discussions. But listen, that's been a fabulous discussion. I think you've really painted a wonderful picture of all the great work that's that has been going on, and it's just very exciting to think it's just around the corner, and the front doors will be opening very shortly and welcoming those first guests in. Just in summary for everyone listening in, I hope that's been a great sort of insight into the expo, and I hope it's given you some food for thought about entering the Japanese market and looking at the expo as a little bit of a springboard to help you do that. Of course, as Rupert has explained, there's still plenty of opportunity to potentially get involved, to get over there to Japan, either just as part of a business trip, taking the expo while you're there, or if you want to dig a little bit deeper and look at the potential trade missions going out and see if there's an appropriate one there that you can become part of, or the themed weeks that Rupert mentioned that may be relevant to your sector, and look at those opportunities. And we will share all of the links and all of the data so that you can drill in and find all the information you need about the business program and about all those great events going on. So if you need any help with that, either look at the links that we'll publish on the website, or send us an inquiry and we'll be happy to connect you up. But all very exciting stuff. So Rupert, lovely to catch up with you. Thank you once again for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And on behalf of you and all the much bigger, wider team, and all those people doing stuff behind the scenes here in the UK and over in Japan, we really appreciate all the great work that's going in from you and your colleagues. It's very exciting. So
likewise, it's a huge team effort, and it's just a privilege to be part of it, and it's very exciting. But my message to close on, Steve, is it's not too late. Get involved, and let's just make this the most successful expo that we've ever had for the UK. So I'm very excited, a little bit nervous, but I know that the amount of work that's gone into it is meticulously planned, and I'm very confident that we're going to have a wonderful success. And I look forward to coming back and sharing that with you next time.
perfect. We look forward to it as well. And that's a great summary. Thank you so much for your time, Rupert. Great to speak with you today.
Pleasure.
Thank you.